Way back in the 20th century, a 16mm projector in the classroom meant a fun movie day instead of a boring teacher lecture. The films told students the correct way to do things. But what if the kids learned a different cinematic lesson? Were these health films educating students about good and bad behavior, or teaching them a good way to be bad? Was there a dark and dangerous side to health films? I'm Doug McMillan of the Connells. Join me for Danger Health Films. Tonight we learned whether health films warned us about the dangers of drugs or just gave us a bad trip. Keep Off the Grass wants to mow down a young man's marijuana dreams with a little cop talk.
Tom, these are yours?
When an elderly parent confronts their middle-aged son about his weed.
Yeah, they're mine.
Oh, Tom, how could you?
How could a 50-year-old man let his mother clean his bedroom?
Like all too many of his contemporaries, Tom is experimenting with something he knows little about which too little is known by anyone.
Sure it isn't a Roth IRA?
Mom smokes like a chimney. And you have a drink every day and smoke too.
It's not the same.
Why not? It's easy for you to stand there with a cigarette in one hand and a drink in another and tell us not to blow pot.
Dad just needs to chill out.
Have you really considered all the consequences?
There's not a shred of evidence that marijuana is any worse than nicotine or alcohol. You can get cancer. Your liver can rot away.
Well, you're right.
Well, that's the end of the movie.
You rather look down on my generation for getting hung up on smoking and drinking, knowing it's bad for us. You think we're stupid. Maybe you're right.
I guess the movie is over now. Kid's right, Dad's wrong. I'm good.
But does that make your generation so all-fired smart for getting hung up on grass? You can be harmed by that too. Or do you have double standards when it comes to our smoking and drinking and you're blowing pot?
Pot isn't bad for you.
Oh, isn't it? How do you know?
Remain in your seats. The movie is not over.
Studies concerning marijuana's possibly harmful effects have been made, although they're not yet conclusive. But some facts are known. Some effects have been established. There are apparently few physical manifestations, a reddening of the eyes, lowered body temperature, and a certain inability to coordinate movement. But there are other effects, psychological effects. The marijuana user generally experiences an uncontrollable feeling of hilarity, quite without reason. He exhibits a marked carelessness. His senses and time perception are distorted. He becomes confused, and he displays irresponsibility and poor judgment. And prolonged use may result in a loss of ambitious respect, the induced couldn't-care-less attitude.
He might find Adam Sandler movies funny.
But grass is not a dangerous drug like heroin. You don't become an addict. What it really does is expand your mind. It makes you see things more clearly. It makes you more creative.
There is nothing creative about that sweater.
Really, it does. All the painters and writers, they all say so.
Anyway, Tom, it is illegal. Every time you blow a marijuana cigarette, you take a chance on blowing your future.
What future? The kid is on Social Security.
Oh, come on, Pop. All my friends smoke pot. They're not criminals.
Only because they haven't been caught yet.
Now, don't interrupt Dad during happy hour.
Tom seeks the help of his friend, Mac, a couple of years his senior, the boy who first introduced him to pot. Mac thinks Tom's project is real square, but he agrees to get him all the dope. No pun intended. He knows just where to start Tom's education. At a garden pot party held by one of Mac's friends.
They're going to Willie Nelson's house.
Smoking grass is a private affair and doesn't harm anybody, he's told. It's a groovy way of relaxing, opening your senses. Tom is most interested in what he sees. These people, most of them college students, are bright and well-adjusted, very sure of themselves and their ability to handle anything.
It's like getting high within a 1967 Sears catalog.
Obviously, they are all able to blow pot occasionally without ill effects. Well, almost all of them.
She sees rainbows and unicorns.
Mac has managed to get himself stoned. He has a great idea. He'll take Tom to see someone who can give him the real lowdown, a true expert on the grass scene.
Now they're going to see Willie Nelson?
Mac takes Tom to a psychedelic shop, a head shop. The place is something else, out of sight. A pot smoker's supermarket, a psychedelicatessen. Harry is a real veteran of the grass scene, and he gives Tom the word. He's very persuasive. Everyone, but everyone's on grass. All the big ones, of course. The best writers, the best musicians.
HR puffin stuff.
He knows the artist. Man, he painted those posters a couple of years ago. His pad's nearby. Why not go over and meet him?
Do they live in Weedsville, USA?
Waco, the artist, is pleased and flattered at the visit and lights up a joint in honor of his visitors. Sure, he blows pot. Has been for years. It's great, man. Enhances the senses, opens your mind, stimulates real creativity. Those conventional posters of the old days were just so much junk, Waco tells them. His real inspirations come to him now when he's stoned on grass. This new work, now that's out of sight.
What if you think Waco's new work is pure genius? That's some downtown cool on that canvas.
Waco, come quick!
Bunny is Waco's wife. There's trouble, big trouble. The man is busting her younger brother.
We're finally going to meet the man.
It's grass, all right.
It's just the cops.
Bunny's brother, Jim, had been observed getting it from a known dealer. The officers caught up with him and placed him under arrest. Tom is impressed with the calm efficiency of the officers and the compassion they show for Bunny. They never lose their cool, even in the face of verbal abuse hurled at them by some of the onlookers.
It's amazing how cool the police are around a film crew.
At the police station, Tom has company. A police officer has noticed his interest in the display. Does he have any questions? Well, Tom is out after information, pro and con. What are the facts, he asks. Easily, with friendly informality, the officer speaks to Tom. No lecturing, no sermonizing. Pot smoking, quite apart from being illegal, is a problem. But a man who takes a drink after his day is done has worked. He has achieved, he has coped, and he wants to relax. Not so the teenage user. He deliberately seeks to tune out, cop out. He uses his grass as a mental crutch because he fears to stand on his own.
So according to the cop, you've earned your right to be an alcoholic.
He may never learn to cope with the inevitable everyday problems of living. He may well become one of the left-behind generation. Nobody of the establishment lectured him, just gave him straight facts. Only the pot smokers seemed obsessed with the idea of turning others on. One afternoon, Tom again has a talk with his father. He's looked at both the pros and cons of blowing pot. Tom has decided what he'll do.
Tom is going to dedicate his life to draining Dad's bar.
It would be stupid to take a chance. After all, he's no psychological cripple, unable to cope. Who needs a grass crutch? Much better to keep off the grass.
Keep off the grass and stay on the hooch. The true message is don't do drugs if you look like a 50-year-old narc. Focus on LSD and other psychedelics takes us on a little trip. Put your seats up and tongues out.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rowe.
Tommy Rowe sang Dizzy in the 60s.
By now it must be obvious to you, as it is to me, that LSD is very powerful stuff. And that's just what it is, stuff. It's not good, it's not bad, it's only a chemical, a drug. It's been around for about 20 years, and people have been trying it for about the last 5 or 6 years. There's some people who think that LSD is the greatest gift to mankind since Tutti Frutti ice cream.
In no way should his appearance in this film be misconstrued as a court-ordered community service.
But there are many others who feel that LSD is bad news to the individual and to the world he lives in.
Tommy's smiling too much on the good side.
For us to make our decisions, we'll have to listen and understand both sides before we make up our minds. While it would be very difficult to find people to tell you how good for you heroin is, or speed, or barbiturates, it's very easy to find people who just can't wait to tell you how great LSD, peyote, DMT, SDP, mescaline, and of course marijuana is.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest highs on acid.
Now, I've taken LSD 42 times, and it hasn't done me any harm.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acid. They couldn't all be dummies.
I don't believe all that dumb stuff about chromosome damage. We would have seen all them deformed babies by now anyway.
These acid heads look like nerds.
That's basically what one side has to say in favor of LSD. Now let's hear what the other side has to say. Then we'll be able to make up our own minds.
Are you ready to make up your minds?
Let's hear from young people who have had their reasons for being down on LSD. Let's also hear from doctors, psychologists, and other experts who have tried LSD themselves, who've had a great deal of experience with LSD and the people who have taken it.
But the only time I think I've ever been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
Can Captain Trips unscrew a baby aspirin bottle?
As a psychologist, I have to tell you that the understanding you think you have gained just doesn't fit in with the facts. Here are the facts. You've been on a number of trips, and we're both agreed that you're having even more problems with your school, your parents, and even your friends. Perhaps what you think or feel on a trip just doesn't fit in with the straight world which you must return to and must learn to live in.
Way to ground Captain Trips.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest trip on acid.
Yeah, but you can also get the wildest bummers. And you can never really be sure which it's going to be.
But what do you mean?
Nobody ever knows enough about the quality of the acid itself, or their own hidden hang-ups that would make it to be a real trip, or a real bummer.
Yeah, but you've dropped acid.
My third trip was a real bummer, enough to make me not to want to go on a fourth.
A lot of bummer in that woman.
What if you think of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you have someone with you through the whole trip, someone straight who hasn't had any acid?
Well, it could be a great experience and a great adventure if you're really in the right frame of mind. If you're sure about the dose in the cap. If you could be absolutely certain there wouldn't be chromosome damage. If you won't feel guilty about what your parents would think. And if you're sure you couldn't get busted because it is against the law. But how can you be sure that for the 8 to 16 hours the trip will take, that your straight friend, your babysitter, will be reliable?
As if the cop was going to tell her, "You're right, let's change the law."
LSD, or mescaline even, if you just let it happen, wow.
She's drinking Fresca.
You find you can really love your fellow man, even when you come down. You can really love your fellow man.
No, I don't agree with you. I mean, what kind of a person are you if you can only love your fellow man if you've taken drugs?
But I always hear that, Lori. I mean, I think kids that take a lot of acid must have some really big hang-ups.
How can they be capable of loving anyone?
Just stick to Fresca, ladies.
It would take more than LSD for me to understand what's wrong with the whole world, or even our local politics.
But you could never know what you haven't learned yet.
That would make a lot of sense if I was on drugs.
Evelyn, I've been trying to tell you something, but you never give me a chance.
I'm listening. Why don't you tell me what you're gonna say?
I've been thinking, we should try some acid. I hear it's a real cool trip.
Sure, and so is cocaine. But where are we gonna find that kind of money? You know, too many kids around here that they tell me that they've been on bad trips on LSD. They saw rats, roaches in different sizes, shapes, and colors. It was like a nightmare.
You see giant rats and roaches sober in that New York neighborhood.
That stuff ain't for me. No way.
If LSD won't kill my chromosomes, the pollution in the air and water will. So what's the difference?
Let's all agree that we're just doomed to turn into mutants.
The difference is we're talking about two different things. We know that if we don't take LSD, we won't damage your chromosomes. All scientists know that it's too soon to know exactly what the damage will be, especially to your children and your children's children.
But water and air pollution are killing us anyway.
Well, that could be. But I don't agree that we should just sit back, swallow some acid, and say, well, man, pollution's going to kill us anyway. This time the whole country is worried about pollution.
Oh, come on. Mescaline is a natural drug. What could be wrong with something that's natural? It's made out of cactus buttons or mushrooms, or is that peyote?
They can't even get their drugs straight.
Well, however it's made, it's natural. And you don't get chromosome damage from something that's natural.
Maybe you don't get chromosome damage from mescaline, but are you sure there aren't any other kinds of damages? Like from a mental hang-up?
Oh, Paula, it never hurt the Indians, and they used it for thousands of years in their religious ceremony.
There are too many people who just can't hack living in our very big and mixed-up life.
Oh, that's an old argument.
Do you need a new one?
Well, you've seen two sides of the LSD psychedelic question, but if you really think of it, there have been about 20 sides to the question, and we've had a chance to hear that many people speak their minds. While it's possible that some things were left out, we did hear from the most important and most strongly felt opinions about LSD.
Where's the Timothy Leary side?
Now it's your turn. Now you have to decide based on what you have learned and what you already knew. One, is it worth the risk to your mind and body to drop acid for kicks or knowledge about yourself and the world you live in? Two, are you sure you're the kind of person who will not get hung up on acid or won't go into other drugs? And three, can any of your personal problems be solved by LSD?
And four, do you want to be a deadhead?
And last and not least, will your dropping acid or other drugs do anything for anyone else in the world? Will it do anything for all those people LSD is supposed to make you love? Your fellow man? You decide.
Focus on LSD and other psychedelics scares kids away from getting high because they might turn into a nerd. LSD is a gateway drug to extra credit homework. Our final film, Drugs Are Like That, is kind of like this.
Drugs are like that. If you keep bouncing that ball in the house, I'm gonna tell.
Oh, all right. Come on, we'll build something. How come you know so much?
About what?
About drugs and stuff.
Oh, a lady came to our school today.
Was this lady passing out samples?
What'd she tell you?
Who?
The lady.
She told us about a baby.
A what?
A baby.
This is a baby. The baby lives in a crib because he can't take very good care of himself. The baby is kind of scared, so he sucks on this thing to take his mind off his troubles. Drugs are like that.
Now kids are going to get hooked on binkies.
He must really have been hooked on that thing.
Especially if mom dips it in codeine cough syrup.
Drugs are like that, too.
You know what that means? Hooked?
Like he's gotta have it.
Yeah.
Step on the line!
This is a sort of a game, not stepping on the lines and cracks. It's kind of fun. But if you play it long enough, it can get to be a habit.
So now we're supposed to get hooked on crack?
Drugs are like that. Habits can be pretty dangerous sometimes. Habits can cost you a lot of money.
The man is keeping the man down.
In the long run, habits are a lot more trouble than they're worth.
Involuntary adulting.
Drugs are like that, too.
Drugs are like lumberyard accidents.
The lady said that habits were very easy to get started and very hard to stop.
I could.
You could what?
Stop a habit if I had one.
Don't you?
What?
Have any habits?
No.
You bite your fingernails.
That's no habit. I could stop whenever I wanted to.
Why don't you then?
Fingernails are a gateway to heroin.
Because I need that face. Didn't she tell you they make you act funny?
What?
Drugs, marijuana, stuff like that. Didn't she tell you that it makes you act funny?
Sure she did.
What'd she tell you?
She said it was like if you were a real good ball player.
This guy's a pretty good ball player. He can catch, he can throw, he can hit, he can even do something silly just because it makes him feel funny. Lots of things make you feel funny. Drugs are like that. course, when you get to feeling that way, you can't do quite so much, and you can't do it quite so good.
Doc Ellis threw a no-hitter on LSD.
Some things can make you look pretty stupid. Drugs are like that, too.
You know something else the lady told us about? What?
I'm gonna get some cookies.
This is someone who's doing something she's not supposed to.
Oh.
She's not supposed to get into the cookie jar. It's like there was a law against it. Some things are against the law, you know. Drugs are like that. But go back and look at it another way. She's not supposed to go after the cookies. Maybe that's the reason she's not supposed to go after the cookies.
Maybe Mom needs to keep an eye on her kids.
Maybe it's not such a bad law after all. But she can't talk about that right now. She's wondering whether those cookies were really worth it. Drugs are like that, too.
A study found Oreos are as addictive as cocaine. Cookies are like that.
Want to see my internal motion machine work? Can I turn it on? Go ahead. What would happen if we made one little change, just for fun?
What have they done?
All you did was try one little thing. I just did it for kicks.
Now they can huff Lego fumes.
You know what? What? Drugs are like that.
Drugs are like that kept so many kids from turning into Keith Richards, thanks to a nail clipper. What do you think now? Did these health films warn about the dangers of drugs, or educate students to justify booze, turn into nerds on LSD, and get hooked on cookies?